Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow, and welcome back to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever, where today we're going to be casting ourselves a 4v4 on the map. It's 4v4 Special Edition Kansas. I fucked all that up, but screw it. Team 1 is at the top, Team 2 is at the bottom. Let's go ahead and get into introducing our players, starting with the pink UEF, going by the name of Assassin. And first land, of course. Then to the east, we have a gray UEF by the name of Nalua, going first land. Then to the southeast, we have a red Seraphim by the name of Maximus Triple X, going first land. And then last but not least for Team 1, we have a blue UEF by the name of Reaper 22, going first land. Lots of UEF for Team 1, a bunch of those United Earth Federation guys. Meanwhile, over here on Team 2, we're going to start in the same position as we did on the other side, with a purple Seraphim by the name of Eon Fighter, going first land. And then over to the west, we have ourselves a white Cybran, going by the name of the Dualist. Happens to also be a Forged Alliance Forever YouTuber. I will drop a link in the description and pin a comment with his channel. And he's a pretty cool dude, going to be participating in the tourney. And then to the northwest, we have another tourney participant coming up this weekend by the name of Sergeant Syphilis, going the best faction, Aeon, and starting with a first land. And then last but not least, we have Citron, the gray UEF, going first land. And that is it for all of our players. So we can go ahead and get into the map, of course. We've casted Canis a few times, 33,000 reclaim, as always. And, of course, a bunch of tactical decisions to make. There is, of course, this river through the middle, kind of disrupting land unit movement, as long as your land units do not hover. You then have these areas kind of over here detached from each side of the map. Both teams have to cross the river in order to get over here, and we're going to see how they plan to do that and how they want to gain control. Generally, you see a split in map control straight down the middle right here, with the player closest to this corner and the opposing corner of the map kind of expanding and moving most of their production over here to be useful. Early on, we can see something like this, a little bit of a mech marine, or any lab really, trying to get in and stop engineers from expanding to these mexes, which are usually taken by the air players. But this time we do have a very nice play out from Eon Fighter to protect his ally, and that should result in a relatively safe early game. Nobody's going to have much issue. There's not really all that much early play as far as early aggression going on, other than a Scorcher bomber. We will go ahead and, of course, spectate this bomber, just so we can get the juicy details of how it does. I love doing this. We, of course, are going to be seeing the bomber head out across the map, going to be trying to pick off engineers, as they are the most valuable thing to kill, as it slows down the build of your opponent by a decent amount. We do see some engineers out reclaiming for Sergeant Syphilis, and we have an interceptor in tow for this bomber out from, I believe this bomber is out from Nalua. Yes, it is indeed out from Nalua. We are seeing it come over here. It's about to drop a bomb, I would assume. No, it is not. It is having issues with the terrain, apparently, flying up and down. It doesn't seem like there's anything quite out yet to cause damage. Is going to turn around. Is it going to manage to get off a bomb or not? Is going to be looking to be able to get off that first bomb. Going to kill off an engineer. And you know what? This is not all that interesting. I don't think the bomber is going to get all that much more damage done. Is going to drop and kill off two more engineers, of course, but that is probably where it ends, as I do believe there's an interceptor on the way, and yes, there is, from the Dualist, and as long as your interceptor doesn't die too horribly quickly, you should be fine. But that's going to be 5 engineer kills for that Scorcher. Is relatively useful, going to try and shut down the expansion out from Citron. But I do believe with that interceptor coming up and these 2 mobile AA out, the bomber is already dead, and we're going to have a few interceptors out to help defend against any future bomber incursion. Meanwhile, over here we can see the expansion out from Team 2 has been generally fine. We can see the expansion out from Team 1 on this flank also is about par for the course. On the west-hand side, it does look like the expansion out from Team 1 has been a little bit faster with the comm of Sasson and Nalua moving themselves out to grab this area of the map. In the middle, we can see some hover spam, some delectable, delightful hover spam now out from Sergeant Syphilis, going to be having these auroras which can hover over the water and shoot at these structures. I know some people don't really like the 3D camera, but I really do, so sorry if that really upsets you. Meanwhile, over here we do see some scouting going on. Let's just go ahead and see what these players know about each other. We can see that a full scout has not quite been achieved by Team 1. Team 2 having full knowledge of what's going on in the main bases of their opponents. Over here we can see Maximus XXX and Eon Fighter in a little bit of an engagement. The units for Eon Fighter are out here earlier. Neither of these comms have an upgrade, but the comm of Maximus is trying to be used to kill off more spam. We have gun speed on the way, and range has already finished for Sergeant Syphilis, and Nalua is getting damage and range as well. So we're going to see 2 gun comms at the very least. The first comm that will finish up seems to be Sergeant Syphilis, and we can see Maximus continuing to try and put on pressure over here. We could see this gun comm out from Sergeant Syphilis try and cut across the water and kill off Maximus, as Maximus is going to be quite overextended here in just a second, going to be in a precarious situation. Of course, always can fall back into the loving arms of the deep, deep river. The river of safety, the water, the life-giving water over here. Yes, take a drink, take a sip. The rivers of Canis are always bountiful for those who would partake of it. Of course, that does require, selling your soul to the Canis gods, but you know what? That's okay. At least they're not the Sentence gods, right? Meanwhile, damage and range at 95% and coming towards the completion point for Nalua. And we do have a lot of damage being poured into Maximus, but Maximus is going to be able to get underneath the water, having the little prongs of that Seraphim comm kind of stick out of the water. Seems weird that it's not colliding with any of these auroras floating over, but at the same time, this does leave Maximus open. He expended a lot of spam to make this happen, make this push happen, did not get very much out of it, and now there's a bunch of units on the front door of Maximus's base. Meanwhile, the comm of Sergeant Syphilis is also in the water, but is making its way up towards the spam out from Nalua, and may be able to get some inroads over here. Nalua might, and we do need to look over here at the comm of Citron. It is about to be outgunned heavily. Nalua coming up with that gun comm, and Sasson also here with their own comm is going to just mean that this is a bit of a difficult situation to hold. Meanwhile, in the middle, those units out from Nalua are still managing to get inroads, still managing to get some kills, and about to get to some mass extractors, but it does look like they're being pulled over towards the comm of Citron, who is currently in a little bit of a dicey situation. Gun comm and normal comm versus just his comm. Of course, still having this PD to kind of fall back to and use as a defense. But that PD will not survive long against some overcharges. Overcharges doing a decent amount of damage, and there we can see an overcharge kills off that PD and means that that's not going to be a threat anymore. Citron probably needs to fall back now. A bunch of units out from Nalua, those units that were formerly pushing up the middle, are now making their way up to the comm of Citron. Citron getting stuck on one of his own archers and needs to continue to run away, falling down to below 10,000 HP, and the gun comm is getting closer, firing shot after shot into the comm of Citron, and going to be continuing to produce issue. We do still, of course, see more spam coming out from both Sasson and Nalua towards this comm. Citron deciding to sit still for a little bit, probably not the best choice, probably not the choice you're going to make if you want to survive. Now that Citron is here, we're going to be seeing some walls being built to try and stop him from running, but those walls are not exceptionally successful, and I think he's dead. Yeah, Citron is dead in 5, 4, 1... boom. That's the death of our first player, Citron defeated by Sasson of all people. Sasson probably got an artillery shell in there. And that's going to be our first ejection here at the 9-minute mark. And we're going to have to see how this continues. Meanwhile, over here in the middle, Sergeant Syphilis has his comm just kind of chilling. He is sitting at 10 kills, so not quite return on investment on that gun comm yet. The comm of Nalua at 1 vet and 15 kills, doing a ton of damage over on to the comm of Citron before it died. And we can see that full share is enabled. I personally like full share. I think it makes games a little bit more interesting. It means that snipes aren't quite the play. You have to kind of run over your enemy's base too. Of course, all of the base being transferred over to Sergeant Syphilis means that he will maintain control over it for the time being. Going to be putting his eco quite far ahead of everybody else's, and we're going to have to see exactly what can be done with this situation out from him. We do see T2 land of both UEF and Aeon variety out from Sergeant Syphilis. Now we also see a T2 air factory now out from the Duelist, and we don't see T2 land quite out from Aeon Fighter yet. This eastern flank also kind of falling apart. Team 2 not doing too well on any front, really, not having control of this western front. On the eastern front, losing some ground. We do have a lot of spam now coming out from Aeon Fighter, but Aeon Fighter didn't do the same strategy that's used over here to get the production across the river. Has to use this kind of little stopgap measure going through this little pass, which really chokes down the movement of your units. Is going to be using the comm to come out here. Does have gun speed and range on that comm. Is going to be trying to shut down this attempted expansion now out from Reaper 22. Taking the hydrocarbon away from your opponent is nice, but of course spending all of that energy to build this hydrocarbon, I don't think it's going to even pay itself off. Maybe it will. Costs what, like 900 power, I believe, to build a hydro. So yeah, at this point it would have paid itself off. It only has to live for 9 seconds to pay off its power bill. Of course, going to be losing the mass cost associated with that. Meanwhile, Reaper 22 has their comm out here. Does look like gun damage and range is completed and is going to be throwing some shots into these land units out from Aeon Fighter. Meanwhile, on the western flank, we can see a large push coming out. We have some Renegade gunships out to try and stop any kind of leaking on this flank as the comm of Sergeant Syphilis continues to push out and get more kills, now sitting at 1 vet and 31 kills, killing off a grand total of 1.2 thousand mass in units. Aeon Fighter over here still fighting with Reaper. This 3v4 is not going quite so well. Aeon Fighter now in a position where, oh man, this is going to be some juicy kills. All of the engineers trying to make their commute to work, trying to make the way to the hydrocarbon power facility to just get some power for their UEF overlords, and is going to be absolutely wrecked by this Seraphim comm, just deciding that no, the civilians are not going to be spared today. Meanwhile, over here, we can see that the unit count for Reaper 22 is kind of dissipating. Not quite as many units left on the field for the blue UEF player, but it does look like this is going to be kind of calming down. We did have a pause. Let's go ahead and check chat. Is there any assault going on? I don't see any just yet. I did. Something's here. IDK. So wait, is it air or not on a 4v4? IDK Max, you sure you can take them air? I'll figure stuff out. Okay. Oh, they were trying to figure out who the mass extractors go to. Yeah, these mass extractors pretty much always go to the air player as far as I understand, because you can always expand out here and grab more mass extractors. It's on you to hold those. Meanwhile, over here, further on the eastern front, we can see a little bit of a push coming out from Aeon Fighter. The first time that Team 2 has managed to get any kind of aggressive play and to have it be successful. Going to be finally pushing past the halfway point of this map. Meanwhile, on the western flank, we can see that a lot of ground is still held by Team 1. The gun comm of Sergeant Syphilis putting in some decent work, going to be constantly causing issues, and these Renegades paying themselves off in kind, getting many kills, and both of them were at 1 veterancy before they died, but now they're going to be targeted down by the interceptors out from Team 1. And that's going to be an unfortunate death, but a necessary one. Or not necessarily necessary. I mean, I guess he could try and save him. But it does look like all of these interceptors are going to come in here. A lot of interceptors may be lost, though, as these interceptors fight. They're about to be flying very close to flak. If this flak is given an order to move just a little bit, a lot of interceptors die. The flak opening up as the interceptors are exiting, and a lot of interceptors going to be going down to this. Is not the most consequential issue to have, but it is, of course, not ideal. Meanwhile, Assassin using the gun comm, trying to get some kills onto the spam out from Sergeant Syphilis. We can see a mixture of spam between Aeon and UEF tech. We're not seeing as much T2 tech as I would have expected by now, but we are seeing a lot of units. I would like to see some more pillars and obsidian spammed out respectively, but we do have T3 land already out for Sergeant Syphilis, sitting at T3 Aeon land, building a Harbinger. Is he having issues with mass? It would seem so. Negative 34 mass in a mass stall that's not too great. Only negative 8 at some points. Let's go ahead and check on the reclaim. In fact, let's go ahead and just swap this over to reclaim. We have 9.3k for Assassin, Maximus Triple X at 9.4k, 12k for Reaper, and 6.2k for Nalua. Meanwhile, we have Sergeant Syphilis sitting at 7.2k, 4.8k for the Duelist, and Eon Fighter at 7.4k. Meanwhile, on this Western Front, we're seeing a possible second run-by out from Assassin, going to be trying to get through this little ravine over here towards the main base of, well, formerly Citron, but now one of the main bases of Sergeant Syphilis. Sergeant Syphilis' comm has continued to work on the veterancy at 58 kills. Now I think it might be the highest vet comm. Nope. Assassin sitting at 41 kills and 2 vet. And the comm of Nalua still at 1 veterancy. Meanwhile, we do see Eon Fighter also getting some veterancy on the comm, and of course Reaper 22 getting some. And we can, yeah, that's about all we can see. Let's go ahead and just check on the economies of these players. Assassin sitting at 52 mass a second. Maximus at 111. That is actually quite good for Maximus. I believe Maximus is the Red Seraphim. Yep, 112 a second is very nice. A lot of T3 mexes. Reaper 22 sitting at 49 mass a second. Nalua at 50-ish. Sergeant Syphilis at somewhere between 89 and 100. The Duelist sitting at 93 and Eon Fighter sitting at 31. So both the Duelist and Sergeant Syphilis are kind of holding up the economy for Team 2. But overall, Team 1 has a minor lead on the economic side of this game. And we will have to see if these Harbingers can kind of turn the title battle. Of course, more than capable of tearing through all of this Lobo, Striker, and Archer spam now out from Assassin. Assassin does probably need to tech up relatively soon. We do see T2 tech out from Assassin, but going to be needing to get T3 relatively soon to deal with all of this. Sergeant Syphilis out here in the middle trying to use the comm to negate the fact that there's a lot more spam out of Nalua. We do have the occasional Blaze thrown in here. Blaze is very good at dealing damage and killing off units, but not very tanky themselves. We do have a pillar or two, the odd pillar thrown into this force. A Janus! Somebody play Fortunate Son. Some folks are born silver spoon in hand. Okay. That was actually the wrong first lyric. The first lyric is some folks are born to wave the flag. Ooh, that red, white, and blue, right? I don't know. I haven't heard Fortunate Son in a nice little while. But that's what I think of every time I think of Janus. I just think of that Nam, that Vietnam. Meanwhile, Sergeant Syphilis falling quite low on health, sitting at 6,000 HP and falling, is going to be able to micro against these Janus, is not quite going to be able to avoid all of the damage of it. Now at 5,000 HP, needs to continue to fall back. Nalua also getting quite low on HP, but not quite as low as Sergeant Syphilis. We don't see any kind of air trying to stop this. We're seeing T3 power production out from the Duelist. Does look like it's very possible that Sergeant Syphilis needs to deal with this on his own. The Janus are still going to be dropping bombs, can of course do the occasional just change in movement to stop these bombs from causing massive damage, but is going to just try and run away. Might want to build a asylum shield generator. That way he can just get underneath a shield and kind of negate the damage over time effect that these Janus do have. But does look like he's going to be able to get back to the base just fine. Not going to be in too terrible situation. And of course we do see a Harbinger showing up to stop any land spam from getting forward. 6 kills on that Harbinger. Meanwhile, on this western front, it does look like the Harbingers were eventually mopped up by something or another on this flank. Maybe even the Janus came over or some kind of air incursion stopped that. Meanwhile, we can see Sasson has just kind of expanded all the way down the western flank of this map and is now set up to absolutely just cause massive issue for Team 2 as he's poised to just kind of push into this base. Meanwhile, on the eastern front, we can see it's relatively stagnant, not much going on. We do see some T2 tech coming out from Reaper 22, trying to get a T2 army up and online, but we do, of course, have Ilshevas out from Eon Fighter, so that's going to be a hard ask to just use a T2 army to kill all of this off. Eon Fighter also getting nano repair on the comm, going to make that comm very threatening to deal with. All of these pillars coming in, going to be trying to cause issue. We do have nano repair also on the way for Maximus XXX, which could be an issue. So many units out from Sasson. How many Lobos is it? There's so many Lobos built by Sasson right now. How many Lobos on screen? 128 Lobos. How many Mongoose? 3. Good. That's about the amount of Mongoose I want to see. Worst, the absolute, not one of the best units in the game, but the worst one for making me upset. But yeah, just generally a very strong army out from Sasson, and Sasson has spread it out, of course, but could make a very strong push into the base of Sergeant Syphilis. Does have the comm very far forward. We have shield, nano repair, and gun damage and range on that comm, I believe. Do we have... yeah, we have nano repair and shield. A very tanky comm with 62 HP regeneration a second, 16,200 HP, and on the shield we have 19,000 HP, so going to be very difficult to deal with. Over almost 40,000 HP on this comm to kind of try and tear through, but of course you're going to have to tear through it at some point if you want to win this game, Team 2. Team 2 taking a very defensive position, but also managing... whoa, what upgrade is that? I believe that is shield on the comm of Sergeant Syphilis. It is. We do have a T3 power on the way for Sergeant Syphilis as well, and a mechs upgrade going on. A lot going on for Sergeant Syphilis. Not sure that it is affordable. 142 mass a second power mass stall is a huge downside. The Duelist trying to get mass T3 air production up, but not quite cutting it at the moment. Trying to get out a whole bunch of these Whaler T3 gunships to try and just stop this from being an issue. As Sasson continues to push in, we do see these Whalers just start to go to town on some of this. There are, of course, some flak on the ground. Those Skywalkers going to be causing mass issue for those gunships, and it's just starting to become an untenable situation for Team 2. Team 2 now starting to lose T2 and T3 mass extractors. It's a very painful situation. These Lobos, of course, doing a lot of damage to the structures. We do have Harbingers trying to defend, but that may not be enough. Cerberus going up. It does look like this is going to hold. Sasson's comm is relatively safe, though, with that shield upgrade and nano repair. Going to be hard to kill off. Can definitely fall back if things get dicey, though. And we see these Whalers continue to be produced out. The land spam has finally run out, but not before... Did enough Lobos get shots into the air? No, they didn't. This T3 mass extractor is going to survive if Sasson doesn't get in here. Meanwhile, on the eastern flank, we can see Maximus managed to kill off Eon Fighter, and Eon Fighter is dead. And we can see the T3 air production out from Duelist is starting to take air supremacy, but is it too little too late? Eon Fighter now being dead means that it is a 2v4, and that's a hard situation to handle. A bunch of Cerberus firing into the comm of Sasson. Sasson's comm losing hit points so quickly, taking a ACU slim fast approach to this game as his HP falls down below 9,000 and more. and more HP just falling off of this comm. Absolutely going to be in a painful situation, trying to dance his way out of this situation, dodge anything he can, going to be falling back as fast as possible. A bunch of T1 engineers now trying to build AA, as these whalers are the things that are killing Assassin at the moment. 3,000 HP and falling, 2,000 HP, 1,000 HP as an experimental is completed by Maximus. 900, 800, 700, 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100, dead! And that is the death of Assassin, and the first player of Team 1 to die. His base will probably be gifted over to either Maximus, who just completed an experimental, or, of course, Nalua. We'll have to see. It is given over to Maximus, who has completed a Yathoda and now has a Awasa on Q. And honestly, Maximus has been ecoing up a storm, has more eco than both of Team 2's remaining players combined. Of course, that is with a grain of salt. They did just lose a lot of eco right here, which is of course unfortunate, but see so much. And yes, full share. Yes, Max. Assassin, share all. Yes, Max. Boo. Okay. Either way, we do see this Yathoda has finished, and it is going to continue to walk towards the base of Team 2. Team 2 needs to come up with a solution for this. I don't know if they've scouted it. They haven't. They haven't had a good scout in a nice little while. But, of course, these whaler gunships are going to help, especially if more are built. The comm of Maximus now trying to build up some flak as it's sitting in the water might be sniped off by some torpedo bombers, but I don't think that is necessarily the greatest of ideas. Maximus having so much eco, just handing it off to another player. Of course, any player it's handed off to would not be the highest rated player in the game, as that is, of course, Maximus, but is at the same time going to be a bit of a difficult situation with a Yathoda on the field. Yathoda does not require very much micro to be a good unit. It has so many weapons and they can all fire independently, so it will kind of just do its own thing. It's not like a GC where if you mess up the micro, it might spend 15 minutes shooting the ground in anger, drawing a giant line of laser fire across the ground. Meanwhile, over here, we can see another push out from Team 1. A bunch of units out from Reaper are coming down into the main base that formerly was held by Eon Fighter and now is being used by Sergeant Syphilis. We're going to need to start seeing more and more whalers be produced. Still, there is T3 air now on the field for Team 1, but I don't think the production is quite there. I think still air supremacy is for Team 2 at the moment, but the Yathoda reaching the doorstep means that there is just so much to deal with and not enough time. We do have a GC trying to be built by Sergeant Syphilis. I don't believe that's going to build quite as fast as he would expect or want out of his engineers. They need to start working triple and quadruple overtime to make this work. And is, of course, now doing the strat, the pro strat. I saw a recent content creator do this, where you just build walls when you're about to die to spell something. And it does look like Sergeant Syphilis has gone with the SS, of course, his initials. And, of course, we can see that these whalers have managed to clear up the T1 spam. But are the whalers going to be enough to kill off the Yathoda? I do not believe so, and this is probably the end of the game. This is indeed an untenable situation, as I mentioned earlier, and we can see the comm of Sergeant Syphilis fall back closer to the comm of the Duelist, and that does just seem to be kind of the end of it. I'm not sure what Team 2 can do to save this situation. GG, well played, coming out from multiple players on teams, both teams really, and yeah, it's just kind of the wait for the inevitable as the Duelist control Ks, and I'm sure that the death of Sergeant Syphilis will be coming soon, and once that happens, it is of course the end of the game. Thank you all. Well, yeah, it's the end of the game. This is over. Either way, thank you all for watching. You all have been beautiful. I would like to say thank you to my patrons, Timothy Calderwood, Sergeant Syphilis in the game right here in front of us, and Nogthar. I'd like to say like if you liked it, dislike if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more, I will see you in the next one. I love you. You're beautiful. Goodbye!